views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
The following audio is via a Skype call.
You are listening to E3 Influence Radio. Own your impact. Master your world. In this new hit show, Sara Loos, empowerment coach and spiritual mentor, teaches us how our influence affects everything and everyone. The time is now to enlighten our minds, empower our hearts, and take energized action to raise the consciousness of our planet. Sara shows us how with simple, easy-to-implement steps. Get ready to achieve your greatest potential. E3 Influence Radio starts now.
Welcome, everybody. I know you all were waiting for the moment, and the moment is here. E3 Influence Radio with myself, Dr. Pat. Sara Loos has got a great show. And today, it's about own your impact, master your world. But listen to this. You know, this is a thing we're going to talk about here today. It is a thing. Stress, if you go back old school a little bit, when I was like in HR, and we started to have the first kind of information out about stress, and you brought stress to like the board and the president and the CEO, and then you brought it to the HR head, and you said, okay, stress is a thing now. They said, no, it's not. They're like, no, it's not. It's not a thing. It's like some crazy thing that you people made up because you don't want to work that hard. And I was like, okay, just wait. I could see it on the horizon. Today, it is a thing. And it's a thing that is showing up in many, many, many ways. That's what today's show is about with Sara. Because what she helps people with is get all of this stuff out the way. Get it out of the way so that you can thrive, so that you can be an E3 influencer, so that you can own your own impact, so you can master your world. But if you're not able to conquer your stress and master your mind, then your mind becomes a stress mind. It becomes that thing that wants to have you spinning in circles, be like the hamster on the wheel, and all of the above. Today, Sara, in this hit show, is all about helping us understand what we are about, what we no longer need, and what we can do better. Sara is an empowerment coach, a spiritual mentor, and beyond all of that, she is somebody that has created a complete way for us to own the way we can influence the world. You know, whether you know her in her high-profile, amazing career as a coach, whether you know her and have heard her talk about her spiritual journey, her compassionate vision, she is somebody that enlightens the masses, and she knows what is on our radar. She knows that today we live in a world that has stress, even if we don't know what it is, and that's what we're talking about today. First out of the gate, battling the sirens. Sara, great to have you here. What a great show for a time we're living in now.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Pat. It's so good to be back. And yeah, there's so much noise out there, so much noise. So I'm excited to talk about that today.
Well, let's start with this segment, Battling the Sirens. And you know what that means, SIRENS. We now know, and we have statistics that say how many thoughts we have and how many of them actually help us. But this is a conversation about this inner dialogue that sometimes we have. We don't even know it's running our lives. And the next thing we know, we're in a state of depression, anxiety, stressed out, burned out, and sitting on the couch, eating a bag of I can't mention the brand name. And playing with our remote control. But tell us about this inner dialogue and what you found as the truth in mastering the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am noticing, the truth is we all are not immune to what is happening in our world. And we're battling a stress epidemic is the truth. And I'm just going to tell a quick little personal story. Even preparing some of my work in the last 2 weeks, I noticed that I was even getting overwhelmed by stress. And even after doing all the work that I've done for so many years. And it's kind of what made me stop and go, you know what? I need to go back to the foundation of the work and start there. And that's really why I wanted to talk about this today. None of us are able to escape the inner noise, but also the external noise. And I believe we're living in a world today where we really have to learn how to quiet our minds and master our minds in order. It's step number one in transformational work. And if we can't do that, I would literally say we can't move forward. We're not going to get any more forward. So what I wanted to talk about, I'm going to be offering coming up, I'm going to be giving some tools on how to conquer your mind and so forth. But what I really want to point out is just that to make people aware, because literally we've become so programmed, I believe, Pat, that sometimes we don't even notice that we've kind of got ourselves an autopilot and that we literally are just functioning in this robotic way. And we don't even realize that this stuff is like screaming in our heads and we're like, all right, I just have to like power through it. I just got to power through it, right?
Well, part of this though too, Sarah, is, and I know you're going to talk about this today, is that, we hear what do we hear these, almost these, a contrast, like orange is the new black, right? So, but we also hear that madness is the new normal. And I don't think any of us signed up for that. And I think that if we believe that madness and stress is the new normal, our bodies will break down, our hearts will explode, and we just will not get to the place we need to get.
Absolutely. So that's a great way to phrase it. Thank you. And that's what I'm saying. You have to be aware that this is not okay. You have to be aware that you could be in control of it and you can actually change it. And that's what I really wanted to start with, is that awareness of like, don't give in to those beliefs that you're hearing or this talk, because that's the rest of the world that loves to be in victim mode, that loves to be in surrender mode. Like, I'm just giving up, hands up. What can I do about it? And those of us obviously who are involved in this work and though are listening to my show are interested in empowerment. And empowerment says, I'm taking charge of this, right? I'm taking this back. So what I really wanted to talk about to everybody out there is just being aware of the noise that is on the outside. And that is like, how can you actually tame if other people are putting you in stress mode, based on their expectations, but more likely than not, you're putting expectations on yourself and you're positioning yourself for more stress. So here's some examples. So one of the biggest ones, obviously, is our devices. And I could do an entire show just about what the devices are doing to us in our brains. Mm-hmm. But if you just remember that you used to be able to exist without that and put the device down and give yourself, like, carve out time away from it, because there's tons of research showing how it's actually damaging our brains and making us go into fight or flight mode. So that just, again, triggers the sirens, right? And the other one is we also are in this mode right now of productivity. In other words, like, we really believe, I know a lot of ladies out there, listen, I throw myself right into that same pot. We believe that multitasking is great. I mean, we take pride in multitasking and how many things we can do at one time. And when we do that, lots of research is also showing that is extremely counterproductive. We think we're getting more done. We're not. So we've developed this way of being, which is all about, let me produce more, let me do more, and it's just like, it's this force. And in my last show, I talked about power versus force. Yeah. And that is a real fundamental way and a difference in how I work. I am really interested in teaching you, helping people have their best life. And your best life comes from your power, not from force.
And that's the book. That's the Hawkins book, right?
That's the Hawkins book. And
Power Based. Yeah, it was one of the first books I ever read. And I had no idea why I was reading it, because I could barely read.
Because you could barely read? I'm confused.
I'm telling you, I grew up, graduated high school close to illiterate. And for some reason, I got that book. There are two books I got that early on in my life that I really had to struggle to read, but I read them. One was Viktor Frankl's, I'm actually going to do a whole show on this book. Man's Search for Meaning. The other one later on was the book that you referenced. And I'm so glad you're using it in talking to people today. It's such a lesson we could all learn.
It absolutely is. And so it's a hard book to get through. I'm not going to lie. It's very challenging because it's basically a research textbook, but he has spent so much time proving with, 30 plus years of research of how we function in our emotional states and how that impacts our levels of consciousness. So my work is really hugely based on that. And my goal is to help people have a better life by living in higher consciousness. So the first step in that is learning how to get to this place that he calls neutral. And neutral is, everything is calibrated in energy. And I'm not going to go into that because it's very mathematical and scientific. But basically, every emotion we have is a calibration. And we need to get to neutral in order to get to any higher level of consciousness. And when I say that, I mean any of that yummy life everybody craves having, where you're in control, you're empowered to live from your heart space and doing the things that give you joy and love and inspiration and ultimately enlightenment. And the first step is getting to neutral. So what is neutral? Neutral is balance. Neutral is quiet. And what I'm so aware of, Pat, is I can't believe how many people I work with today who literally tell me that they get uncomfortable when things are quiet. And I think, wow, I think that's kind of sad, but I understand it, because if things are quiet, sometimes the other thing that happens is the mind chatter goes off. I call that the ego babble, because your ego will babble and tell you, like, I can't believe you said that, or I can't believe you're so stupid, you'll never amount to anything. And there are a lot of people out there in listening to this who have a big, big problem with ego dialogue that is really self-defeating. And so when things get quiet, when I'm like, let's have some quiet space and like do our work, the ego takes over. So a lot of this is about taming the ego and teaching. I always say, you don't get rid of the ego. A lot of spiritual practices will try to teach you to eliminate the ego. That's not healthy. You can't do it. But how about if we give the ego a better job? So that's what I do. I teach you how to get the ego to quiet down and have a different job. I actually give it the job of the scribe, because we're going to go off and do these amazing things together. And I need you to have a more important job where you get to take notes and remind us how we got there so we can go back to it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those, there's a really great, powerful tool that's free on my website, actually. It's about taming the ego. And it's one of the fundamental tools I teach people, because you have to calm the mind down. If you sit down and you're just being completely still and quiet and you start hearing this dialogue in your head, you can master it. And it's really important that you stop it and get it to be quiet. And then just carve out space where you're not doing this overproductive space of just going and pushing. Again, that's force. Everything that we choose to create, I promise, comes from this neutral place, this balanced place, as he talks about it. So what is neutral? It's funny because I think a lot of people think of neutral as being like
negative,
right?
Yeah, like negative. Neutral, we view neutral as a state of nothingness, yet it's super important.
Yeah, exactly. Because if we can get our emotions, and I really hope that people can take this as deeply as it could be. If we could get to a place of neutral, what happens is that's where there's no judgment. And that's where there is relatively unattached outcomes. Like, I find that when working, I'm going to go on this in a minute, but I find that there's so many stories I have working with people today that everybody's really attached to their outcomes, including, like, I'll work with people who are healers and they're doing amazing work, but they're really attached to the outcome of their clients. Like, they have in mind what should happen with their client, or I'm working with a couple and they have in mind what should happen with their spouse, or employers who have in mind exactly what should happen with each of their employees. That's actually a really negative thing, because you're not being open to other greater possibilities. So that's a really important way to think about getting to a neutral space.
Well, we're going to skip the break because I want to make sure that you're able to talk about the bridge that gets built between thoughts and emotions.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, let's keep going then. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, part of this too is we have a sense of we've been given a mind. And,
Right.
I'm one of these believers that we are given a mind for an infinite purpose or being. And yet at the same time, we're watching, or actually we're not watching what goes in and what comes out. And so how do you train your brain to shift to neutral? How do you do that? Because it sounds like it could be a really cool thing and almost sounds easy. And yet I don't think we have the tools to do it. I mean, we've tried meditation. There's so many things we could talk about. And yet I know you hear from people, as I hear from people, I can't do it. I can't do it, Sara. I can't do it. What do you say to folks?
Well, I think the first and foremost thing is change your language. If you say you can't, you never will. So I really work first and foremost. I'm taking the lead off that is that you've got to change your language and believe that you are in control of everything in your life. And when you choose to believe that, you'll practice in ways that do make the change. It starts there. The second thing is, as I said, this work, this conquering the stress, conquering the noise is the foundation. So you have to put in practice and have determination that you're going to change. What I love is that there is a lot of research out now. And I refer to research a lot. I'm going to tell you why. I've been doing this work for 15, 20 years. And for a really long time, people would tell me that, they call it my woo-woo work. And there's a lot of other terms out there. People that don't understand spiritual empowerment don't believe in it. They don't think it has any foundation. And so I'm loving that there's so much research out now that says, no, that's absolutely incorrect. This stuff is proving itself out. So some of the research that's showing up now is that we can actually train our brains. We can actually train our brains to respond differently. So just like we've spent years and years training our brains to have all this negative, as you said, I loved how you put it, like the input that we're putting into our brains is affecting our minds. It's causing the stress. So we can also train ourselves out of it. But you have to be aware, awake, and willing to do that. So it takes practice and determination. And it really takes being dedicated to choosing, just like you can't go, I have so many people who want to lose weight or they want to get more fit. And I have the conversation with them that talking about going to the gym isn't going to make you fit, or talking about changing your eating habits, but not actually having the food change or your diet change isn't going to give you the outcome you want. It's the same. We have to practice, right? And those practices, the first one, I'm going to use the word mindfulness. Mindfulness is really nothing more than focused attention. And focused attention, I'm pausing on it because it's really important that we get it. It's that you're so aware and you're focused on, I'm choosing to make this change, right? And knowing that the ego is always going to distract you and taking the time to practice ego management. And like I said, there's a great tool on my website that's really about distracting the ego and giving it another job. But breath. And I know there are lots and lots of meditation practices out there. The great news is, again, research is proving that it works, that it actually can get the brain. It changes our neonatal cortex. It changes us from going into fight or flight mode into being able to be calm, centered, and capable of making conscious, higher choices. So what I love is, we could talk about different ways that work for people in meditation. There are lots of tools out there. You can try lots of different meditation techniques, and one size doesn't fit all. I really want to say that because I get frustrated. I have people come and go, well, Sara, I tried, I went to this meditation class and it was a snore. I couldn't take it. And the teacher, the voice, the whatever, they'll go into
that was me snoring.
Yeah.
that was me snoring in your meditation class.
Yeah. So not one size does not fit all. And especially like you, Pat, are a great example. You're a very high energy person. So you need to find some way to clear your mind that matches your high energy, right? So for you, it could be that you have to get out and briskly walk in nature so that there's activity.
Think a little white ball about an inch wide. Think about a little white ball an inch wide, where when I hit that little white ball, or I'm coaching like I did this weekend, people that are 75, 80 years old, to hit a little white ball, everything stops around me. So what I hear you saying is, we need to find that thing for ourselves, that neutral thing, right?
Yes.
And what I love about what you're saying is, you're not saying that we have to conjure up some way that somebody else tells us to do it. And I think the question I like to ask you around that is, how do you help people find it? Because the other thing I know that you're going to talk about here today, which is super important, is when I am in my ego stress space, which, and I must admit, I've been here recently, I am not creative. I am not open to what the universe is trying to provide me. And I'm less about my spiritual self. Isn't part of this getting to that spiritual self and allowing creativity?
It's 100% about that. It's absolutely 100% about that. Okay, so two things. I really want to differentiate what I do for work versus just like a standard mindfulness teacher. I really believe that I am here to help people have their highest, best life possible. And that will only come when I help you learn how to connect to your soul self, your God voice within, that spiritual piece that is our 100% shining light. It is your higher self. Most people will live in this lifetime and never find it. They will be living from their head space and not ever learning how to drop into and live from their heart space. So that's what I do. I'm a pretty humble person, but somebody asked me the other day, what really differentiates how I'm working? I'm an intuitive being. I'm an intuitive coach. I'm an intuitive healer. And what I think I do differently, Pat, is that I come prepared to listen in levels that most people can't listen. And just like I know you're high energy, I mean, most people are listening to your show and they know that just from your voice. But I am really listening to who this person is and therefore what is going to complement them and what's going to work for them. And I do not cookie cutter anything. You need different things to get your mind out of the game than somebody else who's, much more quiet energy. And I think that's the problem. We've been really trying to force fit this one thing, one practice, one whatever on everybody, and it doesn't work. So yeah, for you, I know you're really into ping pong, right? You're a ping pong champion. Is that correct?
That is true.
Yeah. So when you say little white ball, that's what you're talking about. And that makes perfect sense to me because it says I can be active. I don't have to be sitting still, but it's actually taking your mind off of everything else. And there we go. Mindfulness is just dedicated focus. So you're focused on that white ball. I'm glad it's white, by the way, because there's involved, right? I mean, color, that's another thing that I bring in so that you understand how color influences you. If it was a red ball, I guarantee you it would change your game.
Oh, no kidding.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no question. That. I mean, actually, I can't even play with the orange version.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. Color affects our energy, especially in our minds. So I do a lot of things with people, just meeting them where they are and their energy. And we're all different. There's some wonderful things that I do that teach you like your personality profiles and what that means about how you're going to meet the world. And so when we look at mindfulness practices, we have to be thinking of it in the same way. And then it's really to understand that my work is, I call it mindfulness plus. It's really going beyond the stillness so that you are connecting to your spiritual being, the level of dimension where you're not just in your head, that you are finding that voice from within. Because I don't choose to coach people indefinitely. I choose to teach you how to coach yourself. I choose to teach you how to be empowered and not rely on other people. So like you said, when you get to that spiritual place within you, that I call it your God self, if that's, that language is, some people don't like that label. That's okay. It's a label. It doesn't matter. You can call it, your connection, your universal connection, whatever, your guides. When you get to that place, that's where you have all the answers. That's where you get so creative. That's where things are expansive. And you'll be surprised at how much more energy you have and more vitality and more excitement for life and joy, right? Because it doesn't matter what's going on around you. When you're coming from that place, everything shifts and changes. And you find that, you get to make that one or two more steps up in an emotional vibration, which gets you closer and closer to what they call enlightenment. And I'm about, like, from that book, I'm really about helping people go up one or two steps. I'm not telling you that I'm going to take you all the way to the top. I think that's unrealistic. But if I can teach people how to move one or two steps up the level of consciousness into evolution that way, we're going to shift the whole entire planet, because that's the math. You shift a few steps and you make major changes in the entire world.
Well, Sara, this is really, when we come back, we're going to talk more about today how to conquer your stress, right? Master your mind. For those of you out there, you're listening to E3 Influence Radio. Sara Loos. I'm Dr. Pat. Today, we're talking about this stress thing. Also, let me mention, throughout the show, you can give us a call at 1-800-930-2819, 1-800-930-2819, if you got a question for Sara. Sara, what is the best way for people to find out more about you? And then also, you got something cool here about Free Fridays.
I have a website. It's saraloos.com. It's SARALOOS.com. And I started something called Free Fridays. It is on my website under Work with Sara. If you just fill out a question, the first up to 10 people who give me a question, it really rolls in by Friday, I'm going to give you a free answer. Like, I respond, I'll do a typical intuitive session and respond. And that's all for free. I just want to give everybody a sampling of how intuitively I'm guided and how I can tap into what's personally going on for you and assist.
And, when we come back, we're going to be talking about influencers and how each of us influences each other. And so when we come back, Sara's going to take us on a journey and look at some of the examples. What are some of the examples others can follow? And how do we do that? It's interesting because I had a little moment playing this weekend and coaching this weekend. And I actually have an apology to make to somebody. And it's really fascinating for me how I get to look at myself. And because of the nature of what I do, I'm constantly reminded of, listen, whatever I say or do that the public sees, it becomes a vibration. And I got to ask myself the question, is it going to be a vibration of openness, expansiveness, creativity? Is it going to be a vibration of kindness despite, somebody personally attacking me? And here's what I've learned over the weekend. Nobody can change me but me. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Ignite your inner magic on Grow Your Soul Radio with Jane Matanga. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio as host Jane Matanga explores how to overcome your fears to help you gain the inspiration you need to awaken your path to joy. Learn the way to life mastery and the enlightened path with Grow Your Soul Radio. For more information on Jane Matanga and her work, Visit enlightened-path.com.
Conscious Confidence Radio, a timeless wisdom with Sarah Main. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio and join Sarah on an adventurous journey to the deeper level of meaning to move beyond today's world of constant change, confusion, and uncertainty beyond the shadow of fear. This hit show explores key concepts such as confidence, values, and attitude in a dynamic way. To learn more about Sarah and her work, visit sarahmain.com.
Tune in to E3 Influence Radio. Own your impact. Master your world. In this new hit show, Sara Loos, empowerment coach and spiritual mentor, teaches us how to achieve our greatest potential to positively affect everything and everyone. The time is now to enlighten our minds, empower our hearts, and take energized action to raise the consciousness of our planet. Sara shows us how with simple, easy-to-implement steps. To find out more about Sara Loos and her E3 Influence program, visit saraloos.com.
Calling all moms, it's time to awaken your vibrant, intuitive, loving self in every area of your life. Join host Debbie Pokornik as she shares thoughts, stories, and tools to help you stand in your power. Listen to Vibrant, Powerful Moms helping everyday women create extraordinary lives. Mondays at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. For more information about Debbie, visit empoweringenergy.com. That's empowering with letters NRG.com.
Let It Go Radio. The future awaits you. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio as host Barbara Scheidegger explores the way to clarity, peace, and how to live a successful life on your terms by turning negative experiences into positive ones. Barbara's curiosity about the human experience drives her both personally and professionally. As a life coach, author, and renowned clinical hypnotherapist, Barbara knows how to move forward in a natural, organic way without side effects. If you want to grow, be sure to tune in to Let It Go Radio. To learn more, visit letitgohypnosis.com.
Are you searching? Looking for a sign? A message you need to hear? From the great unknown, from the most mysterious place that is the most familiar to your soul in the depths of who you are. The universe put someone here to talk to, someone God gave a blessing to, that you may find insight with. TheAngelLady.net. 1-800-323-1790. 1-800-323-1790.
Yeah, that song, Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. Yep, that's the song. I was driving in this morning and that was the song, and I'm in her, it's on the radio, and Jessica's in the car and we're like trying to talk, and I got that song and I'm thinking like, oh my God, what year am I in now? Like what year did I mentally and emotionally go back to? And I'm telling you, it's the weirdest thing. You know, you mentally and emotionally go back to a time, and I remember that song. And that's what we're talking about today with Sara Loos. You know, what is it about the things that get in our minds? Sara, before we jump into talking about examples, again, please mention how people can find out more about you, how they can work with you, and certainly what kinds of questions are people able to call into today and get some help with?
Oh, sure. Great. And I really do hope you'll call in. I love to be put on the spot and help people. I'm available at a website that's saraloos.com. It's SARALOOS.com. And if you go there and there's a tab that says Work with Sara, you can learn that I do individual coaching. Most of it's done by phone or Skype because I work with most of my clients are all over the globe. So I can be accessed anywhere. I also do group coaching, and I do workshops and private, like corporate speaking events. So I love to teach anyone and at really any age how to be empowered and live their highest life. And so I am looking for, if you're interested in chatting with me today and having something answered, I'd love to hear about what is stressing you. And frequently what we learn is that what is stressing you really comes from a belief that's running, a tape that you don't even know it's subconsciously running. And I like to kind of pinpoint those. I get to see below the level and pinpoint those for you. It could also be that there's an energy dynamic with somebody in your life that you're not aware of. And I like to point those things out. Anyway, it's all about awareness. So if you're open to more awareness today, call in. I'd love to help.
1-800-930-2819. Sarah, I was sharing a little story with you earlier, but then, when we came back from break, I was talking about this Gimme Shelter song by the Rolling Stones. And, what I was really struck by is how if I go back in time of that era and that song, today, when you read the lyrics of that song, it's really actually not lyrics you actually want to read today if you're trying to be in a neutral space. But it was a representation of the time. It was a representation of what I think Mick Jagger says is, a storm is threatening, right? Mm-hmm. Something like that. My very life today. I mean, that's the opening lyric. A storm is threatening my very life today. And so... he talks about, if you don't give me shelter, I'm going to fade away. That's the song. That's the whole idea of the song. It's about a time that we lived in, which is very similar to the vibration that some people feel now. But all of that is really put into a sidebar if we are to look at examples that we can follow and how we can influence others.
Absolutely. It's such a poignant song for what we're talking about. There is so much going on in our world right now that is causing every person to come unglued and to feel out of control and to feel like things are overwhelming. The majority of people that contact me say that based on everything going on in the world, they feel that they've completely lost their footing. So I relate exactly to the song and Give Me Shelter. So I want to talk about a few of the tips that I give people just to, I would say, create that shelter, that calmness within so that they can connect again to everything that's truthful. So I'm just going to play. There are two things we're going to talk about here. And the first one is I like to play a fire drill. I mean, if you've got that kind of storm raging in your life, everything is just like, you feel frenzied and the noise is just going. I like to use very simple kind of mnemonic devices and they seem elementary and they are for a reason. I really want to point that out. Your brain, especially when it's stressed, needs simple, almost like elementary techniques. So remember in school when you would have fire drills and the fire drill would be like stop, drop, and roll. That's what they would always tell you. It's like, if there's a fire, you're going to stop, drop, and roll. And as a young child, we taught our kids to do this. And what I am really trying to replace that with on a spiritual level, on a anxiety level, like when you're in that storm and you need your shelter, the safe space you can get by, I call it stop, breathe, and connect. Now it sounds so stupid and simple, but I guarantee you, if you start getting into the practice of trying it and doing it over and over and over again faithfully, it's so effective. So in other words, just stop where you are and you're going to do some breath work. And there's so many kinds of breath work. But your breath is attached to all of the, your nervous system and so many other systems within your body that can actually change your biochemical makeup. So you have to breathe. So it's inhale, exhale. I'd love to I'm going to show your audience here in a minute, one of my favorite ways to breathe, but you have to stop, breathe, and then I add the word connect. What do I mean by connect? For me, it's not just like stopping and breathing. I think that just a typical meditation practice for some people is great. I want to take it to the next level. Connect. Actually allow yourself to drop into your heart space and believe that you can be in control, that you are already a higher being, and that you can overcome any and everything that you're facing right now in this moment. So it's stop, breathe, and connect. And that with that, you're going to finally get the clarity of vision that you need. What do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? And the second step is just adding curiosity. Curiosity will be one of your favorite tools because it takes the sting out of the conversation. So, Pat, you were sharing with me something that happened to you over the weekend. And again, it's private. I'm not going to get into the details, but being able to use a questioning mode with curiosity. Is it possible? You can ask yourself some questions like, is it possible that I'm emotionally charged here? In other words, that it's about me and something that's a trigger just for me. And if so, why? Is it possible that this is about somebody's, a motivation they have or that I have that I'm not aware of? Why am I, feeling the way that I'm feeling? What's that about? And could I really invite like that entire energy of that situation just to maybe sit and have tea with me? Like if it just sat at the table with you and you could sit there and ask it questions, like there's no actual harmful exchange, there's no danger, nothing like that, that you could literally sit across the table from and go, what's going on here? What's the truth of what's going on here? Use curiosity. It will really, really help. And I brought that up in before I do the breath technique, because I really noticed that a lot of people who are trying to do a breath technique and we're working on it, they love to tell me that they can't focus. They don't visualize, because I use a lot of visualization because it literally changes what's going on a chemical level and a cellular DNA level in your body. And so I'm like, could you engage curiosity? Could you say, what is it about? What's going on that I can't be visual? Why am I blocking my capacity to visualize? Why am I blocking my capacity to take breath in deeply? What could that be about? And be unattached, remember, neutral to the outcome, so that you're actually open to hearing and receiving the truth, the answers, because they'll come. You'll hear them. If you've ever done that kind of practice, you know that the answer shows up. And by the way, here's the last thing I'm going to add, and then I'd love to roll, if it makes sense, to roll into the actual breath technique. A lot of people will not do this work, Pat, and it's amazing to me, the number one reason they won't do this work, because they're afraid of what they'll hear. And I'm always, always amazed by that, because what I know is this work is spiritual work, and spirit only speaks in the language of love. Only. So if you're hearing something, once we get this going, you're hearing something, it will be always love language. It will never, ever be something that you should be afraid of or fear, or it's not going to dig up, ghosts from your past or whatever. It's always going to be love.
Why don't we take a quick break, Sara? And once we take a quick break, then we'll come back and then we'll roll right into it. Sara Loos joining me here today, everyone. When we come back, get yourselves ready, get yourselves seated. If you're driving, we're not going to encourage you to do this. And when we come back, Sara's going to take us on a journey, everyone. We'll be right back.
So when are you most peaceful? When you're connected to your source. When you have a deep connection to your soul. And you're living your spiritual way, your unique way. And when are you most stressed? When you're not. It's really, really simple, friends. When we start to borrow desires, we start to control others and situations and people, things go wrong. Nobody wants to be controlled. So it's really important to get connected to the source if you want to remain stress-free. When you're connected to the source, you will have deep access to your own intuition, your own way of living, absolutely fresh and new every moment.
Winning at the game of money. Lynn Brown is now offering Full Spectrum Finance, a progressive 12-month program that will help you to navigate through the mechanics of financial expansion. Finally, a financial planner who looks at the full spectrum of money and abundance. Engage you in the mental, physical, and energetic aspects of finance. This is Full Spectrum Finance. Are you ready to get into it? For more information, go to fullspectrumfinance.com.
Yeah, everybody. Can you see me marching down the streets of Washington, D.C., in this year with this song blasting from somebody's, I don't know, a truck
Flashback to you
or
burning
something?
your brows again?
Yeah. No,
I got to follow you with a fire extinguisher.
The bra thing was in 60. It was
my bad.
Okay, that was Atlantic City with burning the bra.
I don't know.
Though.
I wasn't around.
No, that's for sure. Sara Loos is in the house. Yeah, we're talking about influencers here today. We're talking about stress. Sara, before you guide us through a meditation here, guide us through a way to quiet the mind. Again, how can people find out more about you?
Go to my website, saraloos.com. It's SARALOOS.com.
Okay. We started to talk about what this meditation or exercise would be. So please go ahead, guide us through this.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so I'm just going to ask everybody to try their very best to pretend you have absolutely no other distractions, because I know that we're usually multitasking. Remember I said that's not effective. Stop multitasking. And you just get your feet on the ground, because grounding's super important, and close your eyes. Closing our eyes is super important. By the way, we can't do any of this work with our eyes open because our mind distracts us and wants to start checking out all the other visual cues. So we close our eyes. And I love to work with color. So I'm going to do this technique and then also know that it's recorded in a free tool on my website, as many tools are there. And we just inhale through the nose and we exhale through the mouth. And we start at the top of our head. And if you'll imagine that what you're actually doing is just clearing out of your body any and all energy that's stressful. And my favorite color to work with in that regard is white, because it's, talk about neutral. It actually, white is completely white slate. So let's give ourselves that white slate to create from. So you close your eyes, and we're moving pretty quick because I know I'm coming to the end of this segment here with you. So I'm going to go faster than usual. We'll just do 7 breaths. So you're going to inhale through the nose, you're going to exhale through the mouth. When you inhale through the nose, you're going to imagine that the air coming in is actually white. And we send it to the top of our head, and you'll follow my voice. When you exhale, you're going to exhale the color black. That means you're going to get rid of any and all energy in your body that's stressful, negative, anxiety, fear, regret, any of that stuff. Just get it out. So it sounds like this, and I hope you'll do it with me. So we inhale that beautiful white light to the top of our heads, and imagine that it's haloing around the top of your head. And we just ask for divine guidance. And we exhale the color black, releasing anything that's other than divine in our body. We inhale that beautiful color white into our mind space, asking for divine thoughts and only divine thoughts. And we exhale the color black. We inhale that beautiful color white behind our eye space. And we allow ourselves to see divinely. And we exhale the color black. And then we inhale that color white into our mouth space. And that's about being aware of and being able to taste all of our abundance here already. Exhale the color black. Then we inhale that color white into our throat space. And that's about being able to speak our truth and use divine speech. Exhale the color black. And the last one, let's inhale the color white into our heart space, asking for divine connection to our sacred center, our heart. And we exhale the color black. And that's just a short way to do it. I like to keep that breath going and take it all the way down to your body. But anybody who does that, it doesn't matter where you are, it calms you and it gives you this center core. That's I could be as spastic and stressed and as anxiety riddled as possible. And it can't help but take it down a few levels so that you can grab with, your nails or whatever it takes, clawing back to get back to that space of neutral, to be centered and able to make the next step. And the next step is always like, what's your next conscious choice? Where should I go from here? What's really required? And use that curiosity to go, what is going on here? What do I really need to do? How should I respond next?
Mm. You know, one of the things I know that you're also going to talk about here in the time we have left is looking at this idea of win-win versus win-lose outcomes. And, you know, this is a real tough one for our society. And, you know, there's a phrase that I use that I'm kind of known for using. And I always ask the question, are you playing to win or are you playing not to lose? And, you know, it's an interesting dynamic for me because I don't mean it in a competitive way. I mean it, are we compromising our lives for the sake of something? And part of it is we compromise our lives for the sake of an outcome. And that's what we're talking about today. You know, in order for us to get a certain outcome, there is so much that we are willing to give up of ourselves. And I don't think that's what you're talking about today.
I am really focused on there is definitely a component of that, Pat. I am really focused on getting people to recognize how often their brilliance is stifled because they are letting the external world and the culture and the news and other people's projections and all sorts of things change their idea of who they are. And when we do that, that's when all the stress comes in, because your soul, everybody I meet, it's very interesting. It's very easy quickly to hear what is it that their soul is craving for them to notice. And there's a dialogue going on there that is so muffled because we can't hear it because of all the other clamor in the world. I love how you said the compromise piece. We are constantly making compromises so that other people feel, you know, so that we don't, let's say it this way. One of my favorite sayings is playing small serves no one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we are constantly playing small because we don't want to make somebody uncomfortable, or, you know, we don't say what we know we need to say because we know somebody's going to get really, you know, upset with us, or I'm going to use the word pissed off at us because, so often we're not speaking up and speaking the truth and speaking out and doing the things that we need to be doing. And my work is all about those people who are influencers in this world. You've got to change the way you're functioning so that all the people that are looking to you and following you, you know, be careful because there are a lot of people watching every single one of us. How are we living? How are we being so that we're being a person of influence? And a conversation that I had this weekend that was quite interesting was, you know, a lot of people choose to be leaders, and that is a competitive thing, versus a person that is, well, let me say it this way. A lot of people think that they have to be in a leadership role to be a leader. That's not true. There are so many people out there that are leaders in the way they live their life, and they're way more powerful than people who are seated in leadership positions. So I'm really interested in those people who are aware of their leadership capabilities in the way they live and the way they just are, and therefore what their influence is. And that under no circumstances can be compromised.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Sara, thank you so much for today. Again, please let folks know how they can find out more about you and about E3 Influence.
Absolutely. Please go to my website. It's saraloos.com, SARALOOS.com. I would love to find, and my goal in the next couple of months is to find 3 people who really want to transform their life, who really want to become a person of great influence and doing some amazing things in your life and in this world, and want to join together and make some real change, positive change in the world. I hope you'll contact me. Let's make this happen.
Awesome. SaraLoos.com, everyone. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Let It Go Radio. Barbara Scheidegger is in the house, living your future now. We'll be right back.
Thank you for listening to E3 Influence Radio. Own your impact. Master your world. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio as Sara Loos, empowerment coach and spiritual mentor, teaches us how to achieve our greatest potential to positively affect everything and everyone. If you missed any part of this show or want to find out more about Sara Loos and her E3 Influence program, visit saraloos.com.
The preceding audio was via a Skype call.